So it's that lovely time of the year where we finally start to get swarm calls. And a lot of times you just have to be ready to jump on those in the moment because bees aren't really staying in one spot for too long. And so I got a call today out on a nice little palm tree in the back of someone's yard. So let me show you what we got tonight. So I thought this was going to be a really small swarm, but this one's actually a pretty nice one. And it's a little funny because kind of makes this palm look like it's just got a giant a giant pineapple sitting right there at the top. The little tricky part here is going to be trying to get these bees off of these little fronds. It's not as easy as just a single branch. They have way too much to hold on to in there, but we'll see what we can do. I don't usually use a brush and I don't have a brush with me. So we're going to borrow from the landscape. Let's see if this can do the trick at all. Just want to basically just trying to do enough to wriggle some of them off these fronds. See if in the process we can't get the queen to drop down some onto that box. Not real optimistic, but let's try. While I do that, these aren't fanning up here, so I'm going to go ahead and at least reduce the space up here. If we can't push them down toward that entrance mostly. There's a few, but hard pressed given their behavior to think the queen's not down now. So to kind of support that theory, if you watch, you see how this behavior is starting to change? Now that we've got that closed in, they're getting pretty frantic right here. You're seeing more bees walking toward the entrance. And then in addition to that, you can see these girls have their butts up in the air and they're fanning really, really hard. So essentially, they're communicating that the rest of the bees should come into that space. So, since we see that behavior going, I do want to go ahead and just get this box situated. I don't want them trying to go to that top. So since I have my lid in there, I think I'm just going to do that. So you may be wondering why I'm not just putting that lid up. And the reason I'm not doing that is because this has a screen bottom board in it, which is great for ventilation, but the only downside is I don't have the insert down there. And so sometimes when you're doing the swarm catch, because they're just going off of the pheromone of the queen being in there and then the fanning of the rest of the bees, you can end up with a situation where you have a lot of bees that are actually clustered to that screen bottom underneath. And when you're hauling the bee box in the back of a closed SUV like I will be, then you can imagine that can create potential little bit of problem if you hit a bump or something and you have a bunch of bees that decide to fall off and go airborne. So I just put this lid here to block off that bottom screen area so that the bees wouldn't be tempted to go in there. girls over here are a little slow to get the message. So I started with a couple of old frames that are kind of throwaway frames. It's got some laying room in it, but it's also got a little bit of wax moth damage on it, but it definitely smells like bees. And so I started with 3 frames of that, so it's not just pure foundation in there. I didn't have any just regular combs handy because I just got done putting all those out in the bee yard. And then I threw in some foundations because swarms, presuming that you feed them, can do an amazing job building out their comb. So that's what I'd like to get these girls to do, because there's a pretty number of them in here, but I'm going to have to be able to get some feed on them. So I did have a feeder in this box too, a frame feeder. See here, just the last little bit of fanning going on. I know I'm running out of daylight, so you can't see a whole lot, but you can hear it. So I'm gonna give them just a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna put that reducer in, close them in, and then we'll take them home. So then the question becomes, what do I do with them when I get home? As you can tell, we're basically out of daylight. But I will still crack the side of that box where I have the feeder. Now, chances are a decent number of bees are probably going to be clustering inside of that feeder because it's an open cavity. I hope that's not the case, but regardless, I'm going to have to open it up and put a little bit of feed in either tonight, or I may wait until tomorrow just to not press my luck and to give them a chance to move on to some of the other comb during the day tomorrow. But I need to put feed in there because I don't want them to starve. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the bees in for about 3 days. Now, there are a couple of approaches that I take sometimes that work. And so first of all, what you absolutely do not want to do is you don't want to just throw the bees in a box, leave the box open with an opening big enough where the queen can get out, and just presume the bees are going to stay. Because that very rarely works, especially if you're a new beekeeper and all you have is foundation and frames, because the bees don't have anything to go off of. There's no real reason. They didn't choose that box. So that rarely works. Ask me how I know. So early beekeeping, I thought, I'll just get them in a box, let them build some comb, and they're good to go. It doesn't work. Additionally, I don't prefer to just lock them in. It's too easy for the bees to overheat if that happens. But if you don't have my preferred method, then as long as you give them screen ventilation, that can work for a few days as long as you're feeding them. The preferred and number one way that I prefer to keep an actual swarm is you open one of your other boxes, one of your other beehives, and you find a frame of brood. And ideally young brood is great, but honestly I have found it doesn't matter a whole lot. Capped brood will work pretty generally well too, as long as you have a little bit of open brood that's on it. And you drop that in and the bees will recognize that there's brood, and my experience is 100% of the time the bees stay when you drop in a frame of brood, even with leaving the front of the box completely wide open. If you want to ensure yourself, you drop in the frame of brood and then you basically put a queen excluder over the entrance of your hive, and so that regardless, even if the other bees do decide they want to try and make a break for it, the queen can't get out unless, so this is the downside to that, unless she is a really skinny queen because they ran her around before she flew off, or because she was a virgin queen or a brand new queen in like an after swarm situation. So what I was saying at the very beginning, and what I'm most likely to do tonight, just because I don't have the time to crack open to another hive this time of night, and I'm not sure I will tomorrow, is I will feed them, I will lock them in for 3 days. Typically, if you're feeding them and you lock them in for 3 days, which means screen, so this thing has a full screen bottom on it. If you feed them and you screen them in, give them plenty of ventilation, give it about 3 days, and the bees will start to build comb. And generally, they'll build at least enough on 1/2 of a frame of comb. If you give them, a gallon and a half of feed, that the queen, if she's in there, can start laying. And the minute she starts laying, it's like having brood in the hive as well. So that is the way where actually incarcerating the bees does work, because you're trying to get them to the point that the queen has no choice but to go ahead and start laying. So that's the objective here. That's probably what I'm going to have to do this week. Also considering that so I'm probably not going to have a chance to get into hives tomorrow. And the day after that, I think we're supposed to start getting rain, and it's supposed to rain for like 8 days straight. So I'm not going to have much chance to be in the bees. So I think that's the approach I'm going to have to take. And then I'm going to have to just feed. I will go ahead though after about 3.5 days and take that entrance piece out so that the bees can come and go, because they'll need to go to the bathroom and that sort of thing by that point in time. And if they just get a break in the clouds during the rain, that sort of thing, then they can get out and do that. But it's not likely they'll take the trees during that. I know there was a lot. But I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the strategy here with what I'm doing. I won't pretend that I'm a pro at getting bees out of these little palms, whatever kind of palm that is. That thing was a nuisance. I mean, it seemed like we made pretty quick work of it, but it was still a nuisance nonetheless because of how close those fronds are together. And I really didn't want to be cutting on that tree. I know this particular client has had to replace some of theirs because those trees aren't the most resilient during winter freezes. And so they're trying to get some of that stuff reestablished. So, well, thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching Mac Be Buzzin'. If you would, please hit that like or subscribe button. That'll really help us out. And share this video. That'll also help us out. And keep watching for more good bee content.